Turning everything on its ear. That's what Donald Trump is doing from here to Greenland to Ukraine, everywhere. Ukraine, obviously, peace is in the air as they accept a ceasefire agreement. In Greenland, they vote to surge right. 55% vote to surge right, which means embrace Donald Trump and reject Denmark and Copenhagen. Yeah, that happens. And here at home, man, they're turning things on their head, too, when it comes to unions. The Department of Education, apparently half of it is going to be eliminated quickly. Here to sort it out with me, Mark Mix, president of the National Right to Work Committee, which is a 2.8 million member public policy organization. He also serves as the president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation. Mark, nice to see you again.
Steve, good to be with you. You never lack for news on your show. That's for
we
sure.
do not. Never a dull moment. 50 days, 51 days, whatever it's been. And it's funny. I think about how hard we're working. We're just trying to keep up with this guy. He's 78 years old. We're doing everything we can to keep up with this guy. But anyhow, let's focus on the unions for a moment here, Mark. Look, there's going to be a lot of lawfare because the only thing these folks have left when Trump comes in for the Department of Education, for example, and says, we're going to get rid of half of it. They go to court. They go to court. It's all they can do. They're going to lose. But my God, there's a realignment happening, isn't there?
Yeah, indeed there is, Steve. And, you and I have talked about this before. This is the idea that we're recognizing unions to bargain for government employees. And whether it be the Social Security Administration, whether it be the National Labor Relations Board, whether it be the TSA, or whether it be the Department of Education, union officials, the one tool they have left in the box is lawsuits and then judges that are trying to overturn everything that Donald Trump is trying to do to basically reform government, to make it more efficient, and to basically save us taxpayers a little bit of money.
Look, the union that I think that has really still escaped for the most part is the one that's about to get it. That's the teachers union. Now, I don't know what the Department of Education staff reductions are going to mean. Let's see here. At the VA, 15% workforce reduction. You go around government, just paring it back everywhere. And it means a change of attitude about going to work. It means you actually have to go to work, for example. I can't believe that people flipped out when they said, hey, can you tell us 5 things you did last week? Mark, I bet I could ask you 5 things you've done already today in respect to the job you do, right?
I made coffee, Steve.
Well, that's one. So did I.
That's one, yeah.
1775, baby. That's right.
Yeah, right. No, it's right. The efficiency is something that I think everyone's been concerned about. You look at the growth of the Leviathan government here in Washington, D.C. and state capitals around the country. Steve, we're at a point now where the union movement is literally 50% of government workers. Right. The AFL-CIO is not, they're not steel workers anymore. The steel workers are representing government employees now, but they're not folks in industry or manufacturing. They're in government. And that's the problem. And that's what we're seeing the reform of right now, hopefully.
Well, let me ask you about this, because, the UAW is a fraction of what it was, say, in 1979 when there were 1.5 million UAW members. Now it's less than 500,000. But, okay, so Trump announces this new auto plant, for example, in Indiana. It's going to be a giant plant for Honda. Honda doesn't want unions. Indiana, I'm going to guess, might be a right-to-work state. I don't know for sure. But, these are the battles you're going to have, right?
Yeah, indeed. The idea of the manufacturing industry when it comes to automotives or autos is basically, it is basically immigrated or emigrated to right-to-work states around the country, including Indiana, which passed a right-to-work law in 2012.
So let me ask you about that. Let me ask you specifically. Last year, maybe the year before, but in the last couple of years, Michigan became the first and only state ever to get rid of right-to-work. Michigan is the automobile capital of the world even now. And instead of going to Michigan, Honda says, we're going to build our cars in Indiana. I think that might have had something to do with this right to work and not right to work thing.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Look, manufacturing jobs in right-to-work states, the growth is 5 times greater in right-to-work states than forced union states. Private sector job growth is double that in right-to-work states. So this notion that, the United Auto Workers Union is somehow promoting the automotive industry, Ford went to Tennessee and Kentucky to build their new manufacturing facilities, their battery plants. Those are both right-to-work states. So, we believe there's been an experiment in this idea of individual freedom and manufacturing. You take the tariffs, set those aside, take the trade policy, set that aside. The one experiment we've seen in the United States over the last 50 years is that right-to-work states are benefiting from their ability to let workers choose whether or not they want to financially support a labor union. The states that continue to allow force and coercion, like Michigan, unfortunately, for the last year, they are losing jobs and losing opportunities for the people that they claim should be part of their state and part of the growth of their state. But that's happening in the right to work states.
Well, and that, I mean, nothing makes it more clear than what you just said. If you've got a choice, if you're a manufacturer, whatever you might be, Indiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, I mean, you're naming these states where people are taking their businesses. And we're not talking about little businesses. What's it take to build an auto plant in 2025, 26? This is a massive investment. And this is in construction, in waterworks, in trades. And then you get the people that go work at the factory. I mean, it covers everyone, right?
Yeah, indeed. And, that's the private sector as well. And again, back to your point about the public sector, we've got to retool the public sector in the same way. I mean, Franklin Roosevelt, Steve, agreed with you and me that we shouldn't be unionizing government employees.
That's right.
If Franklin Roosevelt could be on our side, and particularly your side, Steve, we ought to follow his advice in that regard.
Well, if he's on my side, we trust him. But public sector, he said that even Franklin Roosevelt, the guy that put together the New Deal, said public sector unions no, because all they're doing, they're gambling with your money. You got one piece of government, another piece of government arguing over your money and how it's going to be spent. And we've seen this go on for years. Oh, you know what? Give me your votes. I'll turn out my union people. And they're paying for it with taxpayer money. That's the problem with public sector unions, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're not even turning out their people anymore, Steve. When you look at the private sector, we know based on exit polling and just common sense in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio, that rank and file union members overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. While the union officials spent $210 to Kamala Harris for every $1 they sent to Donald Trump, but yet rank and file union members and working class people across the United States joined with Trump and his agenda for a secure border, for smaller government, for lower regulations, for lower taxes. It's all there, and if we continue to push this like we're doing today with the government sector and the private sector is doing in states that have right to work laws, I think we're going to see dramatic change, and it's going to be great for America.
Let me ask you this. I mentioned Michigan being the only state that ever went back the other way, and it has done no benefit to the state as a result. But how many states are looking at Tennessee and Kentucky and Indiana and saying, look at what they're getting that are right-to-work states that are thinking about going the other way? Do you have some people that you think this year might become right-to-work states?
Well, we've got a fairly robust state legislative program to push right-to-work laws. Unfortunately, we lost a right-to-work law in New Hampshire by 10 Republican votes. We had 20, the vote count was 20, but 10 Republicans voted against us. And, we'll there in Montana, we have a bill that's pending in the state Senate and the state House up there. We're working on passing one there. They're not easy to do, Steve, because organized labor is still, notwithstanding their dwindling numbers, their revenue and their money is higher than it's ever been. And part of that's the money they receive from the federal government, to your point.
Fair enough. Mark, always appreciate you being here. Mark Mix. Right to Work Committee, 2.8 million. I was going to say 2.5. You're bigger than that. Almost 3 million people. Mark, keep up the good fight, because I think that you're going to get more states as they see what happens in these states that are right to work, and all of these companies come in and build these beautiful factories to create jobs and opportunity. It's hard to ignore after a while, Mark, and I don't think they can. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it, Steve. Always good to be with you.
Always good to have you. He's always got a smile on his face because he's always fighting for the little guy, which I appreciate. Mark Mix. When we come back, Dr. Peter McCullough will be here. How about that avian flu? How about those egg prices? We'll talk about it coming up.